welcome to the Flow State podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mikayla Nichol from 22 Digital. Mikayla, it's your first time on the show. Welcome. Would you like to give a little intro to who you are and what you do and some amazing facts that people should know about you before we get into what we're going to talk about?
I will absolutely do my best. So my name is Mikayla. Yes, I haven't quite nailed my own elevator pitch, to be fair. So I'm currently the head of digital at 22 Digital, Double Digital. And I've been here for a few months. Prior to here, I was running my own agency, let's call it full stack, but I've also done, had like automation agency. Interesting facts about me. I'm not sure that I have many. I've been in the music industry for 10 years as well, having a bit of a break cool. Because, look, currently having a bit of a break because I'm busy and tired. But that's part of my identity, so I think it's good to mention that. And thanks for having me.
I love it. No, look, welcome to the show. And obviously, I'm accidentally making friends with a lot of people from 22, as obviously, as you know, like Sarah and Ashton have both been on as well. So it's a pleasure to welcome you in as well. There's no affiliation, by the way. We just all like each other.
Can talk forever.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone loves to talk, basically. I think that's what's drawing us together. This is totally off topic as well, by the way, but I've just remembered on our last episode, we were talking about the Daniel Ek Spotify drama and his decisions to invest in military AI. As a fellow muser, well, not really inactive muser, I should say, I'm not super impressed by that. Yeah. What did you think about that? What are your thoughts on his direction as a person?
I actually have a lot of thoughts. So I've been thinking about this for years. I mean, this information's new, but I've been thinking about Spotify as a topic for years because we've just seen them get less consumer friendly. And that's not even talking about like artists and how bad they are for artists. I've been trying to get away from Spotify for a long time. And frankly, this is the thing that's probably going to put me into action. But we've seen this, like, I don't know, we've jumped straight to the AI topic, which is unrelated to this, but, we've just seen them increase their like sponsored placements rapidly over time to the point where I a couple of years ago realized that I was saying, no, I don't like this music actively, and it was still getting shopped in every playlist. So all that to say, I already was anti-Spotify as it was, and now I'm like, yeah, let's not.
Yeah. Well, look, it's interesting you say that because I was of exactly the same mentality where I just think they, and we should clearly have a separate episode on this and we can revisit the one from last week. But I'm the same. Look, they were like, they started out, they were sort of coming in sort of saving the world from piracy, which is fair enough. That wasn't great, but. Yeah, over the years, they just seem to have, they've lived long enough to become the villain, haven't they? Where they're like, they've realised that you can't actually make any money from their entire commercial model. So now it's like, how do we sell merchandise? How do we sell tickets? How do we how do we just become like the radio? But at least on the radio, like, typically you'll have a DJ who's running a show who actually cares about what they're playing. And like, you have to do the commercial bit and push out whatever the labels are giving you. But seems to be weirdly more free reign in the old model than there is in the new model. It's very unusual.
And their edge at the beginning was that they had such a good algorithm. Like you were constantly discovering music that was related, but you hadn't heard. And now it's just this algorithm echo chamber of the same stuff. Yeah. Like, love Sabrina Carpenter personally. Don't want her in every single one of my playlists. If I'm listening to like a hip hop playlist or something, like, and literally this happens, that comes up, I'm like, oh my God. So no, I'm off it. I need to make the jump. Unfortunately, we've all been stuck on it for so long that it's like the move is like strenuous, but I don't like it. And
sorry, go on. No, you carry on.
No, what I was going to say is we attended something digital a couple of weeks ago here in Brisbane, and the first presentation was actually about all of the major platforms, Meta, Google, etc., that are military, like been hired by the military. And you kind of know what's happening, but until somebody shoves it in your face, and you realize that is like a fact and the information is public and out there, that's when you kind of go,
Yeah.
oh, wait.
You're like, hang on, that sucks. There's no way around it. That is a shit decision. Yeah.
Not a lot. Maybe boycott some platforms, but
Yeah. Look, do you know what? Like, it's yeah, I agree with you. And we it's definitely the straw that's broken the camel's back for me. Because I found I'll send this to you actually. There's an app that you can subscribe to for like a month that transfers playlists between like any music streaming services. I think it's like, I don't know, $5 or $10 or something a month.
yeah.
But you literally just sign into both your accounts. It like syncs them. Obviously, not every song's available in every place, but it'll pull across because I've got been on Spotify since it launched pretty much. So I've got like years of music playlists, random stuff on there. But yeah, I was like, man, like this decision, I'm off it. I'll put up with Apple Music's horrible UI for the sake of just not using it now. And like we're gonna move I think the podcast's on Megaphone at the moment, so I'm gonna move it off there and like just be like,
I love it.
Take that, Daniel Ek.
I love it. Me too. You've inspired me to actually do it. I am so pro piracy. I don't know if that's a hot take, but
sometimes you have to be, right? When the industry that you're attempting to support is being crushed to death by the machinery of industry, like what else can you do, really?
I'm like, in the past, obviously, super anti, big pro on support your artists, make sure you're giving them your money because they're all struggling and they always have been until the end of time. But when we kind of started seeing this flip of, Netflix and Spotify are just eating up everybody's money and they're not giving anything back, I'm like, you know what? Let's go aggressively pro piracy and buy their merch and tickets to their shows instead.
Yeah.
But then there's the, Live Nation rabbit hole, which I'll say for another conversation.
Well, yeah, look, I'm with you. I think the best way to support, artists that you like is to go direct, right? Just go buy their stuff directly, go to their website, go on like Bandcamp
promote them.
Those websites that actually give them more money than just here's, a percentage of a whatever every time a stream happens. So
half a penny.
I am with you. And on a somewhat tenuously linked, shift to what we're here to talk about today, Mikayla. Interestingly, and linking together the conversation from last week, I'm going to have to stop doing I just noticed I'm doing jazz hands loads in this episode. I'm going to stop doing that. So obviously we're here today to talk about the latest imaginary job that has come out of Silicon Valley / the SaaS industry, which is the go-to-market engineer. Note my sarcastic finger apostrophes if you're only listening. Now, what the link here obviously is, tech bros basically telling us how to live our lives.
Yes.
And where I want to start with this conversation, which I think is a neat link from what we were just talking about, is obviously as a business trying to sell stuff, it is useful for you to create what they used to call, the defensive moat or differentiation in olden day terms now. And a great way to do that, if you are a piece of software that is easily replicatable, is to create something that seems unique, right? And look, I'm a fan of doing that. I've done it. I'm going to do it again. But what I find kind of annoying is that often that comes from not a customer-oriented, sort of starting point. It comes from a how do we sell more of our crap perspective, exactly as we've just been saying, right? So this role, if you haven't already heard of it, is basically another fake engineering job that's just using computers and applications that's come out of Clay, who are a B2B sales tool, largely US centric. I don't think we hear much about it down here across APAC. There are equivalents. But Clay are actually pretty good at this, similar to HubSpot. They've always been great at sort of carving out a bit of a niche for a few years and running with it. But what's annoying here, from my perspective, and I'm keen to hear what you think about this, Mikayla, is when you are making up a job that didn't previously exist, that causes more stress for marketers, thinking they need a new skill set or a new team, everybody suddenly starts to say they do that job and demand a stupid salary. All they're really doing is doing what Clay are telling them, who are not really interested in how your brand works. Why is that good for anybody? should we really be leaning into these kinds of jobs, you know, or should we just be kind of ignoring them? And look, if your tool is so complicated that you need to create a job to actually run the tool, like, should we even bother using it in the first place? So that was actually quite a few questions. Let me know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this approach?
I actually have many.
Good, I'm very glad to hear that. Tell them to me.
My like initial instinct is this is so Salesforce coded, like, you know, and granted, when Salesforce, I think, first became big, there was a need for it, right? But we've got all these other platforms now, but if you're a Salesforce architect, for example, you can make a lot of money. And the reason why you can make a lot of money is because it is so like, it's so grand. There's so many moving pieces, and it's so technically complicated. So I kind of feel similarly towards this as I do towards that, which is jobs for the sake of jobs, but in a way that's going to remove other jobs feels off. I'm still kind of processing it. And I've always operated, we're very strong on this in 22, but even in past agencies, my whole ethos is very much transparency and making sure that the end user gets to own the products. Like if we have to build them something complex and that's what they need, then let's do it. But how often do they need that, right? Those are kind of your enterprise, corporate, what have yous. But your everyday person and your everyday user doesn't need that much chaos. And then it's just kind of cuffing them down to this company. So I don't know a lot about that company, but which is just, I think just serves to make marketers and fake engineers more money down the line, which I know I should be like, yay, more money for us. But no, that's just, I don't vibe with that. And it just feels like the prompt engineer thing. Like, are we just using the word engineer for anybody that can make anything? Like, I no longer, that word means nothing to me anymore.
Well, look, I mean, that's an actual side of the conversation that I think is under discussed, I would say, because I've actually seen quite a lot of discussion from real engineers who are like, why is everybody calling themselves an engineer when you've just learned to use a computer? Like, that is not engineering. Engineering is like a highly skilled, highly specialized job that requires years of training and certification mostly, whereas these people are like, oh, I've just gone on the internet and watched a few videos from a software business. Now I'm an engineer. And prompt engineering, I hate the most. It's like, I know how to write stuff and think correctly. Like well done.
I can ask my thoughts to a bot, and then I can reverse it and save it in a file. Like you're so right. Like I know you're so
incredible
impressive
stuff.
And some of these prompt engineer jobs, I'm sure that's already dead because I haven't seen that in a while. But they were like, I think I got a call from a recruiter once, and they were paying like 150K just to do that. And I'm like, how long is that job going to last? But to your point, I feel bad for these people who have gone to university, got this impressive real engineering skill, and I know that's broad as well. But and then we're just out here being like, I'm a go-to-market engineer.
I know. I would be embarrassed to say that was my job, and I've been pretty embarrassed about a lot of my jobs on the internet, to be honest. Because when people are like, you would have been the same, right? People used to be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm just like, computers. That was it. Internet and computers.
Computers.
That was my discussion about the job. They're like, I don't really get like what's happening. I was like, just don't worry about it.
It all
the stuff
so
that you hate about the internet, basically. That's it, right?
Yeah.
But look, I think you mentioned a couple of things there, Mikayla, that I think are interesting to dive into, because the core proposition that I think we both disagree with from what you're saying from Clay is that, and I'm just reading their article about the rise of GTM engineering here, is that your GTM motion isn't understaffed, it's under-engineered. Now, I would directly disagree with that. I actually think that go-to-market is one of the most over-engineered functions in a business. And I would put a not insignificant amount of money on that. Like, give me a brand, I will show you a brand that is spending too much time messing around with the machinery of going to market. Is that your experience as well? Do you think people just spend ages tinkering with the machinery instead of just getting on with the job of actually doing marketing and sales?
Yeah, and like, if you had that job, that's pretty fun. Like, kudos to you. But it sounds to me, if correct me if I'm wrong, this is just business analyst cross marketing, right? So it's like we're already doing this, and I think that we have to be careful not to over engineer, like you said. Like put all of our trust in machines to make decisions that should be often human like centric.
Yeah.
And this has actually come up at work recently where we were looking at like just resource modeling, and it was very simple internal ops stuff. But every time it all looked good on paper and we're like, something feels off. And the thing that felt off was we weren't allowing for human stuff. So, staring into space or staring at a computer. So I feel that same way about any sort of machine level analysis, I suppose we want to call it like this. And I'm actually not fully across what the product is that they're selling, because they seem to be one of those companies that are like saying lots, but also not saying lots. Yeah, what I was actually going to ask you is, so I'm not fully across the product they're selling, and I think often these companies say a lot and also nothing at the same time. So you're saying that it is a machine-based product that they're selling along with this new like role. Is that right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So my and I haven't used Clay for a long time, but my understanding is they're in still in the same kind of area as like your Apollos, or like sort of originally like B2B database oriented companies that had, big sets of data that you can buy and use and activate. And then what they've done, and a lot of these other companies, is they've started to build the planning and activation pieces on top. So the one that we've used a lot more recently is Apollo, where you've got big B2B database, right? You buy in to buy the information to then build your, target audiences and learn about them. There's a load of intelligence of, varying levels of usefulness in there that you can use and track. So they're great for like research and planning, and typically are used in like prospecting and, sort of the early parts of a sales process. However, to your point, you never really know exactly how fresh or accurate that data is. Like, it only gives you the basic starting point to say, look, here's all the people and companies you might want to target. Here's a basic amount of information about them. But, you need to go off and do your own more up-to-date research and actually connect with those people. What they've all been doing, though, is building out like, if you wanted to actually run stuff, here's how you can do it. Or, if you want to score these people, or, you want to build your own sales process and outreach. So they've all been, over the years, been building in like personas, sequencing, allowing you to send out sequenced emails, integrate with chat, all that sort of stuff. So that's where they start. And then because Clay's like one of the more complicated ones, I mean, Apollo is quite complicated as well. You then need someone to actually run the tool for you, which is the classic problem most modern marketing and salespeople face, right? Which is like, you get sold something, it sounds really easy, like Salesforce, as you were saying, like classic example.
Yes.
No, just buy it and turn it on. And you're like, no, you've just committed yourself to a lifetime of misery, basically, by purchasing that.
Yeah. And they kind of reel you in, and then they get your entire business stuck on the platform, and then the cost to change, like to manage the change, is so high that you just kind of leave it forever until somebody explodes and pulls the plug. But yeah, like as far as the role goes, here's my test of things like this, which I am just going to coin right now, like the apocalypse test, right? Is this job going to exist in the apocalypse? Like, no, there are not going to be any head of digitals. There might be podcasts. There actually might be a lot of radio. But there's,
bring it back old school and do it from an amphitheater of some kind,
Exactly. If we get drafted tomorrow, like, what's your job going to be? If you're a go-to-market engineer or a head of digital, it's like, jobs for jobs. So that's how I feel. And it's kind of spicy to say that about my own job, but
I agree with you. I think, I'm very thankful for, and also still slightly amazed at I've basically had a job which is just messing about on the internet for like 20 years pretty much, just being like, oh,
Computers.
this is a new thing people don't understand, just how do you deploy that for, you know, some useful purpose? Like that's basically the gist of the job pretty much. Like it's just
Exactly.
so much new stuff that someone needs to sit and look at it all and be like, what's useful and how do we use it?
And what do you think your job would be in the apocalypse?
I reckon I would go like full, you know, courier of some kind. I've got a ton of bikes. Probably just, you know, attempt to just be like, look, I'll just take stuff. Get a couple of backpacks, you know, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Assuming that there was some sort of, you know, requirement for like, it'd be like sort of like the postman, but less sort of really long and depressing and on a bike.
Less.
Did he have a horse? I can't remember. I only watched it once. It was awful film. Yeah, I think that'd be it. Yeah. What about you? What would your apocalypse job be, Mikayla?
I've thought about this a lot, unfortunately, and I think, and for better or worse, you know. I know, for better or worse, and it's a bit of also a weird brag, but I'm very, very, very good at like strategy. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna end up like having to move around pieces of little things on a piece of paper, or like organizing logistics or something like that.
Leader of people to attempt to recover some semblance of civilization.
Oh, yuck. But yeah, probably something like that. Or I would really like to just get some agricultural skills, because what actually would be nice is just like, you know, growing some cabbages or something. But
I feel like that'd be very sort of Zen-like way to see out the post-computer world, right? That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, it comes from probably my like love of farming sim games or something. Like I just want to like grow some cabbages like in Stardew Valley. But anyway,
are you Stardew Valley addicts as well, Mikayla? Yeah. I used to be like super into what was the one on the Switch? I've completely forgotten the name of now. Tom Nook and all his little mates.
Oh, Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing, that was it. Yeah. Started playing it on the DS ages ago, and then was like, I have to stop playing this game basically to make a call that I was like, this is got to the point where it's just not productive to be doing it.
Ruining our lives,
Pretty much, yeah. I got my son Theo was super into it for a while as well, but I think he's off it for a bit at the moment. I was reliving it through him vicariously, being like, oh my god, what have you bought now? How much do you owe?
What I will say about skills to be gained from gaming is I know some people who are very good at I guess understanding alchemy and how the world works purely based off old school RuneScape. So
yeah, it.
Yeah, so look,
the stuff to be learned there. The stuff to be learned, I think. Well, funny you say that. Like Theo and all his mates, like they're all like sort of 10 to sort of 11 or 12 at the moment. All got massively back into D&D over the past few years as well, which is obviously an amazing game for like character creation. You know, like world building, quests. Like they're just. Yeah, there's tons of stuff there. I was getting really into it again, but I was like, again, don't have time to become immersed in Dungeons and Dragons right now.
Well, I started playing it. Well, look, I haven't often because it's impossible to gather a group of adults. So it's very difficult. But we started playing it with a group of friends a few years ago, and it was definitely part of the whole, like, it got very popular during COVID, right? People were able to hang out online. And I love it. And at work, they want to run like a one-shot session because of how, well, it's so valuable for like interrelational dynamics and things like that. We always joke that it's basically just therapy, right? But anyway, more of that, less go-to-market engineering.
I love that though. I mean, I think that's, you know, perfect examples of where just the more of these types of jobs that, you know, occurring, the more obsessing there is over just tools and machinery and stuff like that. To your point, the less space there is for actually connecting with people, which is the core of what go-to-market is all about. Like, you know, every sort of decision to engage with a brand is ultimately emotionally driven. Like, and I'm a firm believer that you cannot replicate that with just software and just machines, because everybody hates it. Like, if you speak to anyone, anecdotally, they can be like, that's automated, that's crap, that's just,
Yeah.
spam, whatever. You just got an amazing sense for it. So I don't understand this, this myth that's getting sold from tech companies at the moment of being like, oh yeah, we just automate everything. Yeah, we can just automate the entire process of engaging someone from start to finish. And you're like, well, you can't. You can automate a lot of it quite usefully, but not the entire process.
Not the soul of it. And I personally really enjoy doing that, and I have offered that as a service in the past. Like I would go in and audit a business and come up with some efficiencies. My brain likes it. I like problem solving in that way, and I like tinkering with tools and things like that. But yeah, I can't shake the lack of humanity in it, I suppose. But I actually took a note from somebody said at Something Digital, it was, I can't remember who said it, but they said that AI can't replicate empathy, something, and I know we're not exclusively talking about AI, but it was a talk about agentic. That's such a big buzzword as well. And the reminder is that these tools can only reassemble things that have already been assembled in the past, in a sense. Totally. And so I heard somebody say it was just Lego, and same with this. And it's like fun to play with, and like we can build something new, but at the end it's still just it's just reassembling things, right? So I'm super pro streamlining things in small businesses as well. We have this conversation a lot. I think people are moving towards a little more skepticism than 2 years ago, when everybody was just excited that they could have some relief from some thoughts. But I think we're kind of moving into this skeptical era now, which I'm here for it. And so the question that gets asked of me a lot is, where do I sit on the morality of it? I guess it's like, should we use it? And I'm like, well, you, for example, we're small businesses. We're often helping other small businesses, and we're using these tools to make things more efficient so that we can, spend more time with our families and pay our employees more and things like that. So it's not as sinister as probably a lot of these, let's say, Silicon Valley companies. Let's call it what it is. So I'm here for it, but also let's keep an eye on these big dogs.
Look, I'm the same. I think it's, the genie's out of the bottle now. Like, it's not going to go away. But I've been having very similar thoughts about it, where you just, like you say, like there's now the democratization part is great. Like the ability for people to achieve a lot more and be able to do more of the boring work in a much more efficient manner, and probably more consistently across the board, is great. But yeah, I think the whole, sort of unicorns and rainbows top end of the conversation is just completely like detached from what people want, and the actual reality of what these tools can do. And I think there's going to be, it's all brewing at the moment, and this is not really sort of directly related, but a load of like legal stuff coming about the blatant theft of creative IP and everything else that's just been hoovered up by all these tools. Because I was reading something similar, like there's a comparison between obviously when Google got big with search, right? They started out from a much more useful place of being like, look, we're going to be like the reference card cabinet of the internet, right? Well, you walk into a library, the librarian has a huge referencing system, so they can tell you where useful stuff is, right? That's great. That's very helpful, because it was hard to discover things on the internet before. Whereas, same with them, right? They've now become we're going to tell everyone what's important, and we're going to dictate what you should and shouldn't be seeing. And I think exactly the same thing's just going to come with AI. But the way that they started was like, we're just going to wholesale steal all the creative assets that we need in order to build our tools. And now we're going to sell all that back to you, and also undermine all the people that have essentially allowed us to create what we've created, which is a much less appealing starting point. And I don't know how much like people use that thinking to make their decisions, but it certainly like plays on my mind quite a lot. Where like, you know, like with the Spotify conversation we were having, you just like and to your point, like the human side of this is like the intent behind these businesses and the direction with which they are being sort of driven is quite concerning in some ways. And I think that's should be more of a, you know, sort of should be more of a consideration for people who are running big brands and investing in all this stuff, right? Which I know that it isn't, but it should be, I would say.
Yeah, and everybody's been kind of shifted to be scared of, you know, robots and job loss, which we should be scared of. But it's like distracting us from, that's such a tinfoil hat thing to say, but it's just distracting us from like looking at the people that need to be looked at.
No, it is totally. I mean, it's, you know, it's like all the noise in, if you liken this to, you know, the Industrial Revolution, right, where there's massive shifts in the skills required to run things, and, you know, jobs that would have been like a stable career for life, you know, disappeared. You know, if you're like a weaver or something, right, and suddenly like weaving looms are everywhere, and you're like, oh shit, no one needs hand woven stuff anymore, because you just got to have people who can operate like a loom in a factory. So like,
exactly,
you know, there seems to be a lot of weird hand wringing about this being some sort of disaster that's never occurred before, but I think it's just because the computer industry has been a bit of a, you know, sort of protected ivory tower of jobs nobody really knows how to do for a long time, whereas now people are like, oh no, actually your job isn't really anything. And look, that's part of the risk that I think you have to accept if you work in this line of work. As you were saying, is like a head of digital, like what is that job really? Like, you know, the job that I do, so I'm messing about on the internet, I'm like, I know that I might have to change very rapidly, but I have accepted that because that's part of the work that I do. So
exactly,
you know, it's just table stakes to be in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like bringing it back to the go-to-market thing, is it's I lost my train of thought. You might want to cut that out. What were we just talking about?
I'm definitely going to leave it in. I'm going to leave it in.
No, there's some sort of celebration happening on the other side of my door here.
Mikayla, and you've chosen to be in a room on your own talking to me instead.
I know.
Sorry.
Rewind. What were you gonna? What did you just say? You said.
So what we were saying was like there's you know, like being in digital jobs, I think you just have to accept that those jobs are actually at quite a lot of risk, because none of them are, there is no moat for a digital job because anyone can do it at any point. But AI is just meaning that more people can now do more of the stuff that was previously kind of locked away behind, you know, skills or whatever, you know, that you may have needed.
And the point I was just, thank you for reminding me, is this whole go-to-market engineer thing. It feels gatekeepy, right? It feels totally kind of reactive to, oh wait, everybody can attempts to do marketing strategies, and we can do business strategies, and we have this like accessibility that we didn't have before, by people that didn't previously have access to that knowledge. Whether it's accurate or not is a separate discussion, but there is like a sector of people who all of a sudden feel empowered to maybe start a business that they didn't have the marketing budget for prior, or things like that, right? And so this just feels a little bit like, oh no, it's very serious. Like, no, we have to gatekeep it, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money for it because you can't do it, but we can for you.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a middle ground, right? We often have clients come to us with an idea generated by AI, and we've had to put a few guardrails in place, because a few times we have taken it and gone, all right, well, you know what you want, let's implement. And then we've got to the other side and gone, we've literally got to the other side before and gone, we skipped our due diligence a bit here because we've taken their idea, not realizing that their idea is like crawled from somebody else's idea. So you know, guardrails, but that's not to say that there's a version of that that's really useful, and we're seeing people get excited about doing things they've never done before. So all of these made up, and even the whole RevOps, DevOps thing, and like it kind of fell flat as well. Totally. It was the same thing. And I went down that rabbit hole because, much like this go-to-market engineer, it is kind of a bit of a wrap list of my skills, right? From years of trying many different things, and you end up becoming a generalist, and then all of a sudden these new roles are created to fill the for generalists to fill them, which I think is great, but it's shiny and it's distracting and expensive, and that gets passed on to the consumer, and then it just dies anyway, doesn't it?
Totally. And look, you've touched on a couple of important things there as well, because obviously part of working in such a varied and fast-paced industry is that you do have to keep, one eye on the trends and buzzwords and, all the things that are catching people's eyes, which is what one of my business partners used to call the exciters that we used to put into a product that we made, which is essentially code for a feature that we know is effectively quite useless, but it's going to get people, sort of revved up about what we're doing. Or people are like, cool, can you do this? And you're like, I mean, it's pointless, but yes, we can. So we always had a bit of a list of those. We'll be like, oh, just drop this one in that you can chuck into your latest demo or whatever. But, look, we're getting through this with the new business at the moment, where like, in order to solve the harder problems that are more meaningful, you've got to do a lot of more boring work. And to your point, that isn't like, oh, I'm a RevOps person, it's like, no, just be a salesperson or be like a head of sales or whatever. The job of sales is inherently pretty hard, because you are trying to convince people that they should, one, pay attention to you, and two, that something useful that they don't want to hear. So like, that's why it's hard, which any salesperson will tell you. And like, no amount of software is going to make that job any easier, because nobody's got any time. And even when they have time and they want something, they still don't want to talk to you about it. So like, that's, you can't software away that problem. That's just like, you've got to be good at engaging people and just being sensitive to their needs and like respecting their time. Like, it's,
exactly.
That's why those jobs haven't survived. I think they're just, as you said, they're a function of over complication and like obfuscation of stuff that should be very simple, but it's just made very complicated. For no real reason.
Exactly. And if I were, out to market or approached with a role like that, my first question would be like, is this 5 people's jobs? Because it is. And I suppose that's what's happening with tools, is one person is able to be more efficient and across more functions. And so you do have people, maybe such as myself, who might be able to pull that all together effectively. But then, how many jobs is this really? Because that's my hunch on the whole RevOps, DevOps. Look, I haven't actually gone that deep into it, but I'm like, you're probably kind of getting underpaid by that point, even, because you're taking the job of several people. And slightly related, but therein lies the whole problem with making everything more efficient, right? We should be making things more efficient so that we can live our lives more, not increase profit share revenue.
Well, look, like that is actually like the connects directly to a much bigger conversation about like the agenda behind all this stuff, right? Because you're totally right. Like, efficiency in and of itself is not an end goal. Like, it just, you've made some things more efficient, so brilliant. So what? Like, why? What was the function of the efficiency? Like, what are you now going to do with the time that you have? And like you were saying, like, you ask that question to 10 people, I reckon 9 won't have a clear answer. And the classic free market economy idea of, production at all costs, increasing capital, increasing growth. That's the reason that there's a lot of pushing for efficiency, because it allows the, alleged creation of more of this mysterious, ever increasing pool of capital that we're all trying to grab bits of.
When does it end?
Well, exactly, yeah. And like, we, part of the reason that flow state exists in the manner that it does is it based around that exact concept, right? Of like, we don't, the business was never created to work with 1 million clients. We were like, how do we work with a small number of people that we can maintain a really good relationship with, but do the boring bits as efficiently as possible and take away the crap bits that people don't want to do, and just focus on the stuff that we all know makes an impact. Like, how do we make our stakeholders look awesome? And like, how do we support them in the stuff that they don't know or they don't have time to dig into? And then how do we like help them address the challenges they have across their teams? Like, it's not hard stuff. It's just a question of, exactly to your point, like, having a conversation in a relationship with someone and being like, look, how do we just shape the stuff that we can do around what you need? And again, like that's not something that software can tell you, or AI can even tell you. Like it could give you the broad brush view, but it's not going to be like, Mikayla, how can I, help you be better at being the head of digital at 22? Like no tool can tell me that.
No, exactly. And we already know that I like the whole like AI discussion around how quickly it's eating itself.
Yeah. Very rapid race to the bottom of possibly quite a deep toilet from my perspective at the moment.
It's just gonna like, I'm sure it'll shift and things will change along with it, to be fair. But at the current rate, I'm like, it's just getting, I call it AI slop. Like it's just getting sloppier and sloppier. Like it's just getting less useful and less useful, in my opinion. So yeah.
Oh, it totally is. And like, I think, obviously you and I are in, we're in the bubble. So maybe our exposure has been more extreme than other people, but I don't think everyone else is going to be that far behind, to be honest, because the danger of the scale, exactly as you just described, is that you see the utility or lack of utility a lot faster, right? And like, I think now that people are understanding that there are actually limits to what you can do with natural language, generative models, and the limits to what they can tell you, like they're not actually as useful as they seemed in, the first instance, like I've got quite a lot out of them, but now I'm hitting limits where I'm like, well, there's stuff I can actually just do faster myself, like, because, I actually got educated in certain areas, or like I learned stuff. Yeah.
You forget, it's like the whole using your map by default, even though you know where you're going. And then the second you don't use it. Yeah, no, same. I feel like real out, but the second I remove it, my brain, I'm like, oh my God, I'm lost. And I'm like, well, no, I do this drive every single day and have done for the last 5 years.
You used to remember directions to places, remember that?
Yeah,
and then read those massive signs at the side of the road.
Yeah, I used to remember phone numbers. Like, well, that's getting way back now. I still remember my like childhood home phone number from way back when. So
I've still got a couple of those, like back in the day, But like, I mean, maybe that's the less useful stuff. Who knows? Though. I mean, it's a tough one.
Roll along for the ride.
How many of those landlines are even there anymore? It'd be crazy. I bet they're probably all disconnected by this point, surely.
Oh, I forgot that landlines even existed. So,
hey, remember when the phone was attached to the wall back in the olden days? It's crazy.
I actually do. We've got a very young team. We've got a couple of people who are maybe 21, 22, and explaining to them that, because I'm not very old. I like to think. But explaining
we don't talk specifically about age numbers on the show.
Certainly not 22. Explaining to them that, I have used, that you can't use the phone and the internet at the same time, or you can't both pick up a phone at the same time. They're like, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, that wasn't that long ago. Like, I remember using a floppy disk, and granted, I was at the end of the floppy disk era, but I remember using a floppy disk to bring an assignment to school to print it off from the singular school computer that we had to print stuff. And they were like, but you're not that old. I'm like, this shit happened really quickly.
That's how fast everything's been moving, right? I know. I had a very similar experience with Thea recently, where we still got a massive collection of like DVDs, and I was like, we can't. Our DVD player broke ages ago, and like the other stuff we have only plays, they're all region locked. So I was like, I'm just going to buy a cheap, region-free DVD player. And then Theo was amazed at like the menus and stuff on them. It was like, oh my God, what's this? And I was like, oh yeah, there's like, special features like director's commentary and stuff. And I was like, you've only ever seen streamed stuff, haven't you? I was like, yeah, there's loads of awesome stuff on these. This is why it's great, like having physical media editions of stuff. So I got all excited about buying Blu-rays and DVDs again. That was my latest do something.
Well, I love that.
Retro.
Like collecting, and not to go too down the rabbit hole of back in my day, but we're already there. No, I've done a lot of teaching. Every year there's this DJ comp, and for a few years I was a trainer for it. And so long story short, we put them through 6 weeks worth of crash course training on DJing, and then we throw them up in a club and see how they do, and it's the best time of their life. And it's all ages. So we would have 18-year-olds, and we've even had 70-year-olds. But there was a bit of a turning point a few years ago where we were having this one session around where to download your music, right? Because we get them to put them on a USB in this instance. And there was a turning point where I realized that the younger people in the classes weren't understanding what the concept of downloading a track was. So they went away and they like
from the internet onto a thing.
Yeah, truly stuck on, like, it just wasn't clicking. And I kind of had to take a step back, and all of the trainers were probably around a similar age, late 20s or 30 or so. And I said, guys, like, we need to explain to them what that means now. And I remember the next class after I realized that, and I said, can somebody tell me, like, where they would get their music, where they would download it? And they were going, oh, I'm like on Spotify. I'm like, oh, like, you don't know what owning a file means. And so we had to put that into the curriculum. Yeah. And now there are now like tools to even bypass that, but the industry standard is still download it and put it through a record box and put it on USBs and what have you. But yeah, so then we had to do a whole lesson on this is a file.
Yeah, this is what makes stuff on your computer, when you open something.
Yeah. And you own this. Spotify, you don't own this.
That is wild. Yeah. I remember like the whole access over ownership discussion from when streaming, was first all starting was massive at the time, right? And it's crazy that we've now got to a generation where nobody really understands the concept of ownership anymore, and you just effectively have been renting everything from someone else.
Yeah, and I remember it being kind of, I recall it being kind of exciting when programs like, let's say Photoshop, all of a sudden, instead of being $1,000, were like accessible, because they were like, oh, we're going to do a subscription-based model. And that was kind of exciting for a second, because you're like, oh, like I can access these things that I couldn't access. And then we just went so far in the wrong direction. We went totally way too far. Yeah. And now nobody owns anything.
Well, that's it, right? And like, I think that, to your points earlier, the value exchange is no longer there, right? Because like I do still agree with like the subscription model in some instances. And I think Photoshop's a good one where I know we all hate paying the subscription, but before you were in the whole, like, you buy it, you might get like a year or 2 years of updates, and then you got to buy a new version, and that's like another $500 or $1,000. And that, that wasn't great for anybody, because they couldn't really sort of continue to invest, and you had to pay loads, and like it was all pretty rubbish, because you ended up with people on like older versions, and like it was all to your point, very gatekept. You had to have loads of money, right? Whereas now I feel like they've all got lazy, because they're like, oh, we just do the that $20 to $50 a month mark that everyone's happy to just sort of chuck at something for work, and you just leave them live and you probably never use it. They're all happy that they can just charge that and not really do any work now, aren't they? And be like, oh, we'll just back to the topic at hand, just be like, oh, we'll just put AI in there, and you're like, yeah, brilliant, but why? I
didn't want it.
That doesn't help me be a better, artist, does it? Just having AI doing stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a funny one. And then again, like you say, again, it's just stuff you don't want to learn, isn't it? It's just AI everywhere. No. Don't need it.
I want to actively choose to use it. I don't, and I do. We use it like a lot. Of course we do. But like, I don't need AI in my, recipe, like, or actually recipe is probably pretty useful, but like we don't need it in everything, right? I'm like, I have off the back of something digital, which was really great, like a really good keynotes and things like that. But I said to somebody, I was like, I think I've got like AI fatigue. Like maybe it's because we are in this bubble and we're talking about it a lot.
Hearing about it, right?
Oh, I'm not even bored, just like want to like I'm tired and because I love it and then I hate it.
Grizzled,
and then whiplash, giving myself whiplash. But,
no, I know exactly how you feel, and I think it's a common sort of mood to be in at the moment, of just it's just everywhere, and people just don't really seem to know what you can and can't usefully do. It seems to be the critical issue. And like, unfortunately, coming back to what we were talking about at the start, in my world at least, most useful use cases still just an evolution of what was happening before. Like, process automation has been here for ages. That has been incrementally improved by AI. It hasn't taken the mad leap forward that everyone thinks it has, because process automation was quite sophisticated before AI came along, and now is just slightly more sophisticated, because it can be further sort of optimized, that's fine.
Yeah.
Data analysis, again, like hasn't been a sort of massively significant change there beyond what you could do before. It's faster and it's more efficient, but you've got to be very careful with what you ask for and what you get out. And then the rest of it's just sort of fluff, really. Like, and this is obviously very specifically in our like use case at Flow State and what we're building. But you know, like to your point, like the industry, even the investment industry now is like you can't just chuck out some crap AI business. And I'm amazed at the amount of money that's gone into all these like what are essentially wrapper businesses around someone else's model. You know, there's an expectation that AI should be a part of your company. And from the conversations we've had with like investors, they still expect that, but no one's, you know, got like sort of starry eyes about being like, we're launching an AI tool. You're like, yeah, but why? No. And what is it doing for you specifically?
Yeah, exactly.
Still pretty painful to talk about, to be honest, though. But look, without whinging too much, let me conclude on a musical example, because that was where we started, Mikayla. So, in terms of someone who has not complicated things, and I think is keeping a pretty firm view on their audience, you know, back to your point about music production, I'm like a big Logic fan now. Like did use Cubase for years, and then I moved over to Apple. I can't remember why now, for some reason. And now I'm trapped like everyone in the...
Society told you to,
the Apple ecosystem, I think it was when we first moved to Australia, because all my family were on like iPhones and stuff. So we were just kind of like, oh, well, it's easier if everyone's got FaceTime or something. And, you know, that was the snowball just went from there, basically. But like Logic, and I think Cubase are the same, like have been very resistant to dropping AI into any of their tools, still purely focused on like hardcore music production stuff. And the only places that I think they've dropped it in, or more machine learning stuff in, is in stuff that actually makes a difference. Like all the virtual session musicians are really good now. Like if you're doing like, you know, just music instrument related recording and stuff, which is mainly what I'm doing. The electronic stuff, they've got loads of really good, you know, process automation stuff in there for like all kinds of like electronic production and stuff, which is awesome. But what they've resisted, which I love, is like they're not just chucking in like any AI really in there. They're just like, look, we can do these things that we know people want, you know, like which you would know from your background on the electro side and like DJing, is like, you know, all the stuff that just makes your life easier is really good. And like Logic's quite complicated as doors go, but like once you get your head around it, it's awesome. And like I just hope that they're not going to ruin it. But that's where I think they know their market, they know their customers, and they're very sensitive, I think, to not shoving too much in every time they push out an update, which I really like. It's a bit of a rarity for Apple now, because they seem to have lost their way a bit, but that's one of their programs where I'm like, you guys are really, you're nailing it with that one in particular, I think.
It says to me there's somebody there that knows who not knows, but cares about the impact that it's going to have on creative arts, right? And the discussion being had around the arts at the moment is, like how far is this going to go? Are we going to replace physical art, to what extent, and things like that? And it's like, no, I think that we're just going to have a larger volume of stuff, for better or worse. And we've seen that with platforms like SoundCloud and things like that, as over the years, as people have gained more accessibility to these tools, the whole, you know, Fruity Loops in a cereal box era, which I love. We've got more music. That also means more really good music and people getting access to these tools that didn't have it before. So I feel the same way with the like AI stuff. Is, you know, you've got all these people with this like these amazing brains for creating, and maybe they're just missing this one component, which is maybe it's a theory-based thing, chord progressions or what have you, and the things that we can Google already. So it's just kind of bringing speed to it, right? So I feel like I'm kind of here for it, as long as we're not replacing all of it with, again, AI slop, but that's going to happen anyway. Like, that's already going to happen. So it's going to be harder to find the good stuff, I think, because it's going to, in some platforms, going to get drowned out by like too much generated stuff, I suppose. But my optimistic hope for all of this, across all of the conversation, is that it's just going to make new pockets of the internet, because we're kind of sick of the current version we have, right? Like, yeah, and I kind of welcome that. I'm like, let's have more like, I don't know, micro communities. Is that what we call it? More like niche places where we can find what we want. That's my hope. So
I think that's a very optimistic vision, which I agree with, Mikayla, to end on, to be honest. Because and tying it back to everything we just talked about, I think that's the danger with these, all these roles and all this, machinery and functions for the sake of it, is like it's just continuing to ruin what was quite a cool collective space. And social media has some of the blame for sure at their door, and the rest of big tech have kind of destroyed it a fair bit as well. So yeah, I think the democratization of those kinds of tools definitely puts a lot of the power back into other people's hands to be able to create those spaces, which hopefully we'll see, right? And then we've just got to hope that the walls are high enough for the money and advertising industry to not ruin them immediately as well. Hopefully it'll be all right. Maybe that's where we're going. Or we've got to rely on our apocalypse jobs post the collapse of the internet, and
exactly.
I'll prep for bike couriering and you can get into your humanitarian leadership strategic role, and we can see where
I'm just going to keep playing Stardew Valley, but
just make sure you got you need a few big batteries just lying around to make sure you've got enough a solar panel, and then you'll be totally fine. Stardew Valley forever. Well, on that somewhat ambiguous note, Mikayla, thanks very much for joining. If people want to get in touch with you or talk to you, where can they find you, and what have you got? What's going on next? Do I recall you and the team are coming down for South by Southwest, or did I?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So people can reach me. Honestly, LinkedIn's probably the best way to go. Mikayla Nichol on LinkedIn. South by Southwest, I won't be attending. I'll be gallivanting around Europe, actually.
Very nice.
But Sarah is doing a keynote at South by Southwest, and Ashton will be there as well. So we'll be on the ground, probably in a 22 shirt, if anybody wants to link up.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and we should definitely do another one on there. I think the general ruination of the music industry. There's a lot to say about there. But thanks for coming on, Mikayla. It's a pleasure talking to you. And if you've listened before, I still don't have a good way to end the show. So this is the end of the show. Thanks for listening.
Bye.